So tell me a little bit about how you got into this and how you became the curator of the bonsai exhibit.
Yeah, so I kind of fell into it a little bit. I started in bonsai in a unique way. So I don't have the story of I watched The Karate Kid and I was inspired to do bonsai. But I was in art school, and one of my college professors introduced me to an individual who owned a private estate, and he happens to have the largest bonsai collection in the Western world. So I started there helping maintain his collection, maintain the trees, started doing primp work, weeding, maintaining the property, then it eventually evolved to working directly with the trees. So.
And how did you learn that skill? Through the person who had them?
Exactly. So many people who learn bonsai, they'll study in Japan for like a very intensive 6-year apprenticeship. I was very fortunate. All the masters came to me, I like to say. So the top professionals from Italy, England, Japan, they would all maintain trees at this private collection. So I got to learn from them and really develop my own approach through that as well.
And did you eventually get some of that private collection here, I heard? Or?
We did,
okay.
yes. So in 2023, that's when we announced this major donation from the Kennett Collection, owned by Douglas Paul. So that year, he had 7 trees that were donated to us. And by opening of November of last year, we ended up with 50 from his total collection.
So would you say that Longwood has one of the best bonsai, or most complete, or how does your collection stand up to the other collections, I guess, in the United States?
So I think something that really identifies us as a unique collection is our large presence of Satsuki azalea bonsai, but also Japanese trained bonsai by contemporary masters. So if we compare that to somewhere like the National, they have amazing Japanese trained trees, but a lot of these are more historic trees. Ours are in training from people who are still alive today, creating some of the most contemporary forms.
It says you planted him here, but he's here actually just training this one right now. And is this?
Dan Snipes.
Dan, okay. And you're a volunteer here?
I'm a volunteer here at Longwood. I work 1 day a week. And in this case, the plant is grown out. And so now we just need to bring it back into shape, take off some of the long things that are sticking out.
Yeah.
Give a little definition between the different foliage pads, and just, we're trying to show off the nice movement and dead wood in this tree.
Absolutely. And how old is something like this?
This tree, I don't know.
That's a good question.
It's always hard to say.
Right.
This, there's 2 questions. How old is it? And then how long has it been in training?
Right.
Because to grow this thick trunk, that probably took 50 years. And then after that, it took another 30 years to get to this point.
Wow.
So this tree could easily be 80 or 100 years old, or it could be older.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Older than any of us here.
For sure.
Beautiful. I mean, it is such an artwork. Should we go and see some of the?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a look.
This is my first time actually seeing this. So was this renovated at all during the time when you got the collection?
This is a new courtyard. So this opened up in November of last year. All new space. We can now view the trees in more of a 3-dimensional atmosphere. The former display prior to being out here was just on the opposite side of the building we just came from. So our former display was on the east side. Now we have a new courtyard on the west side.
I like the shosugi-ban.
So sugi-ban, yeah, traditional Japanese finish, both beautiful. It creates a beautiful backdrop for viewing the bonsai. And also being a charred wood finish, it's naturally preserved and from rotting and also pests.
So how much can you actually see when you're out here and looking at the plants? Do you have, like 30, 40, 50? Like, you probably don't want to overwhelm the viewer.
Exactly. So each individual piece is its own art piece. So we want them to each have their own spot to be viewed. So we usually feature around 40 to 50 trees out here at any given time. And you'll also see some accents that are accompaniment plants to display with our bonsai.
So for the novice, what does bonsai actually mean? And what does the practice entail, typically?
Sure. So the word itself means contained tree. So it's a tree in the pot. We oftentimes think of bonsai, we think of the tree, but it's the combination of both elements that really create that art form and what makes it special. So if we put a tree in a pot, not necessarily a bonsai, right?
Right.
So it could essentially be a shrub in a pot, but it's the training techniques that we apply to the tree that make it more of an art form. So some of the trees, like you see here, the bay laurel, you can see a heavy gauge aluminum wire that's used to guide and direct the growth of the branches. So in combination with pruning the branches, clip and grow, we also wire to create these beautiful branch pads that Dan Snipes was mentioning a bit earlier. So we want layers to the pads so each section can have good airflow and light and air to the interior.
And we had just seen like the bay laurel in the West Conservatory, so you could
Yes.
see the difference. This almost looks like one of those big succulent shrubs out in South Africa, like a baobab tree or something.
It has
almost,
that,
but a
that
miniature version.
look to it, the trunk for sure.
Yeah.
And this is actually one I started in 2022. This was originally in the idea garden as a large containerized plant. It was in a pot about this big, about maybe 4 feet tall, and it was about a 6-7 foot tall tree. And
Wow.
then one go around, I did a heavy cutback, did heavy root work to get it in this container. So you can see how quickly we can develop this.
That's crazy.
And I think it's a great addition to our collection because guests love anything fruit or flowering, and also being a bay laurel, this is something we can cook with. This is something everyone understands as an everyday item.
I used to be a light pruner, and then when I started working in the landscape, I started pruning a bit more heavily, feeling a little bit more confident as you're like lopping off the tree. But with the bonsai, I feel like you have to be ruthless to a certain extent, you know?
Oh, exactly, yeah. A lot of times, especially with the volunteers or students I work
Yeah.
with, the first time I'm pruning with them, they're very timid. They don't realize how much we actually take off the trees.
Right.
Or we aspire for nature in miniature. So keeping the tree compact, creating those ideal the scale and proportion is very important. So regular pruning is very essential for our trees.
So what's the best way when you're actually working with a student? Do you say, take a little off the top and a little more and a little more, or do you just hack it?
Well,
Not
yeah, that's a good,
Not
yeah.
in a
Well,
sense, but
sometimes
you know what
we
I
do
mean?
hack
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So that really depends on the species, right? What they can handle. If we took something like the American arborvitae and we were to prune it back really hard, remove or even reduce majority of the foliage, it may not come back very strongly.
Right.
In contrast, and a more maple here to its right, this is a deciduous tree. So we could remove all the leaves, we could make heavy cuts on even thicker branches, and they would reliably back bud for us.
And that's just the difference between something that's coniferous and deciduous then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, so like trees like junipers, they rely much more heavily on their foliage to rejuvenate and keep their energy balanced.
The American arborvitae specimen looks so beautiful because all that deadwood, you know, or I mean, some of it's probably still alive, obviously, but like all the deadwood looks so exquisite. And that's something that's kind of important, the character of the plant for bonsai.
Exactly. And this is a collected tree. We could talk more about a bit later, but this was wild collected in the United States. And so you can see what nature has done to it over time. All of these branches have died off while still maintaining that one living vein that creates a nice contrast to the dead wood.
Yeah, and the gentleman who I know who collects bonsai in our area in the Finger Lakes, like he does go out wild collecting, and he could find something that's maybe growing on on a rock or a stump that has that kind of character, and then you're bringing it in, putting it into a pot, and then training it like that. But it had that character already, you know?
Exactly.
And you're kind of bringing it out.
Yeah, it's amazing what nature can do, and I'll point out a couple a little bit later to you, some of the Yamadori. I'd like to show you this one. This is ginkgo. This is actually one of the original to our collection. So this start was created by Yuji Yoshimura, who's one of the founding Japanese-American bonsai artists. And he did a demonstration here in 1959, and that actually inspired Longwood to purchase trees from him that same year. A few of our staff took the class, and after that, the rest is history. That same year, we purchased 13 trees from him, and we still have 4 in our collection today.
Now, I love how you actually have this displayed because it's like an outdoor art gallery. And you have the light above, you have the wall behind it, you have the shadows, the dappled light. It looks exquisite, the beautiful table. I mean, how many of these do you actually have to take in during the winter months? Do you keep some outside?
Sure. So this is a full year display with the exception of if we're in 20-degree weather for an extended period or we drop into the teens. We do rotate out 3 or 4 major change-outs throughout the year. So now we are cycling in through a bit more of our tropical trees, but once we're around like the like 30-degree weather, we'll start taking trees like the ginkgo inside.
Yeah.
So something that's unique about our collection as well is not only do we have our own permanent collection of over 150 trees, we also have access to the Kennett Collection's trees and to have those trees on loan to us. And he has about 1,400 in his collection.
So it's almost like an art loan. You could bring them out, you could display them, and then take them back.
Exactly.
So
we're
that's
always,
how I see it. So it's not really like a donation of sorts. It's kind of like a loan.
both, a little bit of both.
A little both.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. So we're always looking to show what trees are in their prime. So we'll go to the Kennett Collection, scope out what's of interest, and bring them in. Especially for our regular guests, I think it's very important to have something new to show.
And how does he display them? Does he display them in the yard, in the house? Like how does it, on a patio, on a...
Mostly outside.
Yeah.
Very similar fashion to what we have here, but
Okay.
he has a lot more in a smaller space.
Got it.
A little more eclectic style to it.
And
the
a
way to
nice
get started.
ficus, and you get all of those, what you would normally see in a large ficus with all those little spindly bits coming down and rooting as if it was like rooted in a tree.
Exactly, yeah, aerial roots that
Yeah.
form from the top of the branches down into the soil. This is one we acquired from Fort Myers, Florida, from Weigert's Bonsai Nursery. And I actually saw a lot of these trees growing at his collection when I went to pick it up. And the environment there, it encourages this sort of aerial rootage. He had many of them growing from the pot towards into the ground.
Wow.
So it's very neat to see just how environment can influence the growth of the tree.
Is this normal though to show that when training began? Because I feel like that, maybe I haven't never noticed it in the bonsai exhibits that I've been in, but to showcase when it was started to be trained.
Definitely. Guests always like to know. They're always wondering
Yeah.
how old the tree is.
Yeah.
So I think it's always important to point that out. Not only how old a tree can be, but how attainable it can be as well. I think a lot of
Right.
people getting into bonsai may think, oh, well, it's going to take this many years, but
Yeah.
we can create a bonsai tree in a relatively short time frame. So it's not always how old the tree is, how old can we make it look.
And then your crepe myrtles.
Crepe myrtle.
Yeah, and I was thinking, because when you know, these are trees in pots, they're not necessarily in the ground. And yeah, during the cold season, you would have to probably take some in because when it gets too cold because of the wind, they don't have the security of the ground, you know?
Exactly,
So,
yeah. So a tree like the crepe myrtle here will take in around 35, 40 degrees
Right.
and protect it for the winter.
This is a really lovely space. You did an excellent execution out here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And something I can point to that you mentioned a bit earlier is the beautiful backdrops. We have individual backdrops to pair with 16 of our trees in the courtyard. And not only is it wonderful now, the evening effect is wonderful as well. So we have spotlights above the tree as well as backlights that uplight the backdrop. And my favorite time is right around sunset. We have the sun setting in the west and you get that warm glow in the backdrop. It's quite fabulous. Here's another example of one of our original trees to our collection, the Chinese elm.
Chinese
also
elm, I
from
feel like,
Yuji
is a
Yoshimura.
popular one to be bonsai'd.
It is, yeah. If you take note of the smaller leaf, perfect scale and proportions for bonsai.
Yeah, what are the things that you're looking for? Is it character of bark? Is it the type of root structure? What is it that really draws you to a plant that says, oh, that would be perfect for bonsai?
Yeah, so a couple key elements that lend itself to age. If a tree has really nice nabari, we see that's a Japanese term for your exposed root system. You really get that sense of the tree grasping to the ground. Then also flaky bark. Another great example on this Chinese elm. More textured appearance lends itself to that. Also more movement or asymmetry of design. Now this one happens to be an upright tree, but more movement you see could lend itself to being an older specimen. And then highly developed ramifications. So beautiful primary, secondary, and tertiary structures lend to that. And also our tapering of the trunk. So thicker at the bottom and thinner as you go towards the top.
Now, I've seen also ones where they create almost like little dioramas. So they have, you know, a rock, a stone, you know what I mean? It's almost like a little miniature landscape of sorts.
Exactly. So that would actually be considered a little bit more in the realm of Penjing.
Penjing,
So
okay.
Penjing predates Japanese bonsai. It's actually the original creation of that art form, and it's where the tree is a little bit less the central focus. So you might have a large stone and a tree planted on it, or you might have a bonsai tree and then maybe a figurine or something of those sorts underneath.
And that sounds more Chinese. Is that, does that have origins in China? The diorama
Yes,
style?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Penjing actually translates as tree and tray.
Okay.
So a lot of the really old images you see depicting Penjing, you'll see a tray, a large stone, and smaller plants on top of it.
Got it. This one's an exquisite piece too.
Yes,
Just with the,
this is a great example of the Yamadori. So this is a limber pine collected by the Backcountry Boys in the United States.
Backcountry Boys?
Yep,
That's
they
cool.
it's a team of 2 that collect bonsai in the wild and.
Not related to Backstreet Boys. but
Backstreet Boys, wow, yeah.
Backcountry
If we
Boys.
ask them to sing, I don't know how they feel about that. But yeah, great example. Now they don't do a lot of the major styling themselves, but they'll put it
Yeah.
in hands of someone who will put all the wire and place all the branches in the correct orientation. A tree like this may not have even been in this orientation.
Yeah.
It might have been angled at a completely different orientation and then reinterpreted this way.
Indeed.
Yep.
Okay, so it might have been growing this way, and then you just kind of straighten it up
Exactly.
in the pot itself.
But
Yeah.
the beautiful deadwood, all original
Yeah.
before it was collected. So if you think about it growing in conditions where it's subject to harsh winds, snow load, lightning strike could all impact and design that.
Isn't it? It's so Japanese, I think, in a way, to appreciate the older forms, the dead wood, the wizened nature of the tree. That's not something that is typically American. If somebody gets struck, if a tree gets struck by lightning, oftentimes they're like, I got to take that out of my landscape. But this is completely different. It's appreciating this as a form of art.
It's like perfection in the imperfection. It's even how they treat antique containers. So you could have a crack in a pot, but then they'll fill it with gold, and it actually becomes something that could be even more prized.
Right.
And that's what we do as bonsai professionals too when we're starting out material in nature. When I go to a nursery, I'm not looking at the prime piece they have on the shelf. I'm looking at for what they have that they're getting ready to throw out, because that's the
Right.
thing that's unique, that has character.
Yeah,
that
that's
could
true.
Be potential bonsai.
You know, we went actually to a place in Detroit, I'll have to link to that episode, where they have actually a little section for bonsai trees, because enough people were coming in. I guess there's a club in the area.
Okay.
And I was like, that's so cool to see in like Detroit. You know, you wouldn't think that they would have that section in their nursery, but that would be nice to see actually going into some nurseries. But you're looking for, you know, the thing that's being thrown out at like even Home Depot, because you could get some good azaleas there that are
Exactly.
look like pretty trashy.
Yeah, like half of the top may have died off,
Yeah.
or maybe they're going for, it's supposed to be a tree that has a ramrod straight trunk,
Right.
but maybe it has a curved trunk to it. And we're
Oh.
like, okay, that's gold
People
for
are
us.
going to look at plants in a whole new light, just like with those little tips. And the Japanese black pine is also one that you would see in a lot of Japanese gardens
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah, this is an iconic species. So there's certain species like the Japanese maple, trident maple, Japanese black pine. When you think of bonsai, this is certainly one that comes to mind. Beautiful age to it, flaky bark, has almost this quirky aesthetic to it.
It looks like it has real needles, like the way that the needles stick up and out.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a porcupine.
This is a beautiful Bougainvillea glabra. This was purchased and acquired from Joe Noga. He's a famous bonsai photographer. He photographs the albums and for the U.S. National Exhibit that takes place every 2 years in towards the end of September. You won't see many like this. This is a prime example of a Bougainvillea, maybe one of the best in the United States.
Yes.
Also been on the cover of
Exquisite.
bonsai magazines as well.
I'm sure they have competitions every year that people bring their bonsai to.
There are, yeah.
Yeah.
There are national shows and there are also regional and club shows. So even in our region, we have 3 or 4 clubs that are within 40-mile radius.
Do you participate in that? Does Longwood participate in that? Or is that considered more like cheating?
We do, but we don't. We're not in the juried section, we'll say.
But you're in the more the ogle
yeah,
over it.
we're here to support our clubs.
Right.
In fact, we have our Brandywine Bonsai Club coming in a little bit later this year for their group show.
Yeah.
This is a great example here, this Nishiki cork bark. I think this one works
Look
really
how
well for
carbuncly
bonsai.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow, it is crazy.
All of this barking, it's actually caused by a fungus that causes that corking and that layered effect to it.
Interesting.
Now these are oftentimes weak on their own roots, so we grafted onto a standard black pine rootstock to make them a little hardier. And you can see here, you can see a big change from the thick to thin here. That's generally where that graft took place.
You almost like wouldn't see the graft though because it is so muscly and carbuncly. It just kind of fades into it.
Exactly.
It's pretty neat.
So I always like to point to this Korean hornbeam here because this is a great example of the range of bonsai styles that are out there. There are 5 to 7 main styles in bonsai, but this is one that's a little bit more unique. We call this a Raft style. It's taking inspiration from nature of a tree that has fallen over and the side branches now become leaders of the tree or main trunks of the tree. Again, this is another tree that was most likely originally imported from Korea into Japan and then Japan to the United States after.
What are some of the best places in Japan? Have you been to Japan to see like bonsai?
I have, yeah. The best time to go, in my opinion, is in February.
Yeah.
Every year they have the Kokufu. That's their main exhibition of bonsai. It's the longest running bonsai exhibit in the world, and also the top quality trees are in that show.
Is it in like Kyoto or Osaka?
It takes place in Tokyo at their Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, okay, well, nice.
Oh yeah, so that's where they have the exhibit. It's a 2-week exhibit, and they have 2 different sets of trees they display during that period.
This one's really cool.
Yeah, beautiful imported Yamadori collected from the wild. All of this deadwood is natural, very minimal alterations to the wood by hand, and more movement you see on that deadwood, and more interesting the interaction between the living and dead, the more value that specimen can be.
But the way that it's clipped as well around it, which is like a very clean clip, and then the contortions of that white, almost antler-esque bark is just so exquisite.
Exactly, and the deadwood we call on the trunk, this is what we call sherry, and the dead branches, the branch tips, is jin. Those are Japanese terms.
And what does that mean, sherry and gin?
Branches, it's just
a real
similar to
descriptor.
branches,
Okay.
yep. That might be a different pot that I was thinking, but.
Yeah.
So I could point to this one here, this Australian pine. So Australian pine is in the common name, but this is not a pine at all. This is actually a Casuarina. And what looks like needles are actually these green pieces here. These are actually branches of the tree. The only photosynthetic part is the very, very tip there.
Wow, and I like the name Equisetifolia because it looks like an equisetum. It's like equisetum-like foliage.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
This is a wild
segmented.
collected from Florida. So in Florida, these are invasive, not here. But this also has more of a raft-like style too.
But tell me about this because it looks like it's starting to grow. Would that have to be cut off?
Sure. So if we want a branch to thicken, what do? We let it grow.
Right.
So this has been growing for about 1.5 years. Once it's that desired thickness, I'm going to cut it back further, maybe about a foot up, and then rebranch that particular
Interesting.
piece.
So you like let it kind of go through this strange phase where this one will eventually be cut off. Because I would think people would be like, why don't they cut it off right now? But you're just waiting for that branch to thicken.
Yeah.
Now, where would you cut it though?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So
your stem is obviously thinner at the top, thicker at the bottom.
Yep, so generally we would cut back to an existing bud or a potential adventitious bud. There might be a few through around some of these spots, but probably cut back right here to this branch's wiring. And what we do by cutting that, we're also transitioning the taper. We talked about that a bit earlier. So we go from thick to thin. That's more desirable in bonsai.
So then the new branch will become the leader of that stem?
Exactly,
Okay.
you got it. And that's an important training technique, to continually cut back the tops and transition to finer branches.
So is there a reason why you wanted to display this in this kind of intermediate stage? Is that just to have that conversation about this?
Exactly. It's to start that conversation about bonsai, the training techniques, and it really does capture guest attention, and it becomes a conversation starter. And the reason I am growing this out is because when we acquired this, we had a branch that originated from the back of the tree and came up across the front. And we really wanted to see this main line of the tree. So we cut that tree off, and in doing so, it left a big opening in the back. So we're building out a new depth branch for the tree with this one that's growing taller.
I mean, is there ever a faux pas that you do when, like, maybe the great person who actually did the bonsai and then somebody comes in and like mangles it a little bit or does a different kind of technique to it? Is that like shunned upon? I'd imagine that could happen, you know?
Well, everyone has their own approach. I don't think there's any just one way to do bonsai.
Right.
And everyone's aiming for a different aesthetic in the end too, but certainly there's general consensus of what can and can't work, but there's always still room to be explored too. Like for instance, we have a Japanese white pine that's on display that was created by Masahiko Komura, who's like the most famous bonsai master around. He's like the Picasso or the Michael Jordan of bonsai. And if he didn't try new things and explore new things, we would never be where we are today in bonsai. He revolutionized a lot of what we're doing today.
Got it. We are going to hear some lawnmower in the background, but that's just because we're here on a day off, so that's why there's no one here.
Oh yeah.
We get to get the real behind the scenes
here.
here.
It's not elves that come in the evening and take care of things.
Exactly.
We have real people that come in.
You don't like snap your fingers and then the lawn is cut. And this is another one that has like exquisite. I mean, look at the undulations in the bark.
And this is a great example of a before and after. This is one Dan Snipes, my volunteer, completed last week. So you can see that refinement throughout the entire tree and that definition of all the sections that he was alluding to. And I love the deadwood on this one. The asymmetry, this push to the left, and of the total design.
It's really beautiful.
You can almost imagine it growing on the side of a cliff.
Oh yeah.
And being influenced by the wind and the natural elements.
Yeah, I think of my time in Thailand and going up on the top of the mountains and just seeing how the trees twist and churn in that wind on top of the mountain. So, a hard life up there.
It's like the white of the greenhouse.
It is. It's the white of the greenhouse because it's completely bleached from the sun.
It is. And I will point to that too. So some of this is bleached from the sun. But we also treat it with a chemical. We apply lime sulfur on the surface. That gives it its white appearance, but also acts as an insecticide and fungicide.
Interesting.
And so if you can imagine looking at a tree like this in the distance, it gets consumed by the atmosphere, the air. It's kind of to insinuate that sort of look too. That more of that white aesthetic, that atmosphere.
I kind of feel like, you said you came from the art background, right?
I did.
This is such a perfect marriage between having an art background and getting interested in plants. It just seems like a natural progression into the plant world is through the art of bonsai, because it is such an art form. The way that you have it displayed here is so artful as well. You really get to appreciate each individual one. This was such a nice introduction to bonsai, so thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you for coming out, and welcome to the Bonsai Courtyard.
Thank you. I'd definitely love to come back and see what you have here, for sure.
Yep.
The bonsai exhibit at Longwood was truly exceptional, and we hope you got to enjoy this tour. Be sure to check out our other garden tours at Longwood, both here on Plant One On Me and also on our sister channel over at Flock Finger Lakes. Now, if you're interested in going on a Plant One On Me style tour with other plant-loving folks, then you could check out our group botanical tours that we do every year, including Costa Rica, Thailand, and now Japan, where you maybe even will get to see some bonsai. You can reserve your spot before the trip fills up by visiting homesteadbrooklyn.com. You could click on the Learn tab and then go to Botanical Tours for more info, or just visit the link in the description below this video. We'll see you in the next video.